We're used to talking about thoughts and feelings in relation to our practice. We usually talk about how we should deal with or cope with thoughts and feelings, because we usually talk about the negative ones. How do I deal with this? Should I suppress this? Is that healthy or not? I think I'd like to suggest that it might be more helpful to think in terms of stories and what gets called in kind of sciencey psychology type stuff affect, which is feelings, emotions. Whether that's ones that we can actually name, I feel angry, or whether it's just, I know I'm feeling something, but I'm not really sure what. And we're always telling stories. On the bus, in the shower, in bed, at work, sat serenely on my zafu, still telling stories. And of course we're always hearing stories, and that's actually why we tell them. You might say, actually, I'm telling stories, but actually am I telling them or am I hearing them? Actually, the stories that I'm telling, in what sense are they my stories anyway? There's a story happens to land in my head and comes out of my mouth maybe, or just goes round and round in my head. Is this mine? In what sense? Why do I tell stories? Well, because the stories I hear make me feel. They generate affect in me, whether that's making me feel good, broadly, making me feel good or making me feel bad. And I respond to that, sometimes by doing something, but more often just by telling another story. So I tell stories about me, I tell stories about you, and I tell stories about the world. And I tell stories to me. I tell stories to you. And I tell stories. I announce them to the world. And always this is about how I feel, how I want to feel, how I want to make you feel. So if I'm telling myself stories, maybe I want to, reinforce this feeling. Maybe something ridiculous, trivial, like, I was right to say that. I know I was right to say that. I've now just thought up these 3 reasons why I was right to say, and I'm feeling good. Maybe I just want to extend that good feeling. Yeah, I remember the time. Oh, wasn't it wonderful? Yeah, it was so... Story. Maybe I want to actually contradict. Look, I feel really bad. I feel terrible about what you said. Or maybe even I feel terrible about what I did. But actually, here's a story. This is the self-justification. What am I saying? It's because I want to change how I feel. I want to change the effect that I'm manifesting. I want to feel good. I don't want to feel bad. And of course it's the same but different while I'm telling you a story, because literally I want you to feel with me. I want you to feel along with me. We might say, I'm trying to persuade you of something. And sometimes, that's the active intention, but always as much or more at the level of feeling, at the level of affect. So I want you to share with me. And it might just, be my friend. Look, this is a lovely feeling. This is a lovely story. It makes you feel really good. Yeah, let's share it. That's great. But then equally, maybe Maybe I want us to do something. Maybe I want there to be an action following on from this. Don't racists make you angry? Yeah, let's do something. Or don't foreigners make you angry? Yeah, let's do something about it. Let's share. Actions follow on from feelings, follow on from the effect. And effect and story are always going together. So as much as any argument trying to persuade you of something, rational argument, it's usually not. It might be something as simple of, hey, wouldn't it be great if we had, I don't know, let's have Indian for dinner. Yeah. Do you remember last time? It was so good. And again, it's all about effect. Feel this with me and then we'll go and do something. I want us to go and do something. Or I want you to go and do something. And it might be as simple as that. Or it might be a politician after your vote. Or, but always this grounding, this absolutely solid grounding in effect, because it's the effect, the feeling which makes us act. And of course, in all the work we've been doing around strong negative feelings like anger, the action follows on from this effect, but there's always story there. It's never pure. It's never pure effect. It's always story. So, last time, talking about Joko Beck's relationship with the idea of core beliefs. And for her, these were, fundamental stories that run you. But what's significant for us is that these are stories which you feel very strongly. And often it's the negative stories and the negative effect which we're more aware of when we feel more strongly than the positive effect. I can just go around feeling vaguely happy all day, but, if I feel strongly something negative, then, sit up and take notice. And of course, Joko with the core beliefs is, what's the images she uses? Like you've been punched in the stomach. Like I'm about to be sick. Really strong effect, really strong feeling. I know this story must be important because it's making me feel that strongly. And so she talks about developing the ability to sit with, to be with strong effect. It's just 10 seconds, that's as much as we can do. That's fantastic, 10 seconds. Maybe a minute, maybe 10 minutes. And just being able to sit with this, whatever it is. And what's the effect of that? It weakens the effect, she says. And that's absolutely true. But in weakening it, it also allows, in itself, it begins to challenge it because, in good Zen terms, good Buddhist terms, what is it? Oh, it's just a story. As soon as I begin to weaken that connection, because if I tell this story, for Joko, the core beliefs are always something like, yes, I'm such a failure, or I could never succeed, or whatever. Gut punch. Sit with that long enough. Good. Oh, I can never succeed. Well, hello, stupid story about how I can never succeed. Nice to see you again. Go away. It loses its power. It loses its ability to have this strong effect on us. It becomes much more emotionally flat, much more neutral. And this in itself is a kind of challenge, a kind of shift within how the story and effect relationship works. Now, I've said that, in a sense, I'm always looking for effect, and I'm always telling a story for a reason. And the stories that I hear are told for a reason. And a word that we can usefully borrow from literature studies is scripting, which is to say why the story is being told, what the end is. So, say I tell you a story about how dreadful racists are. Well, obviously, it's about, no, this is this is so unfair. We should be looking at the world in this way. Equality is important. If I tell you a story about dreadful foreigners, exactly the same thing applies. I'm scripting it. I'm saying, well, look at all the terrible things which these foreigners are doing. Can you believe it? We have to do something about it. Again, there's a reason for telling the story. There's a desired effect, but there's also a desired outcome, an action. And these are about how we exist in the world, how we inhabit the world, how we see the world. These scripts are always telling us, no, you should see the world this way. This is how the world is, and so that's what you should do about it. And we live effectively floating in this sea of scripting the whole time. And obviously things are being scripted in one direction and go, yes. And things are being scripted in the other direction as well. And, okay. Sometimes, though, something, well, in a way, not so much in the Joko sense, but still we could say a kind of core belief, what we hold as really fundamental, comes up. And we can find a way of challenging this. And I just thought of one example of this, which comes from Diane Rossetto's wonderful book, Waking Up to What You Do. And this is where it's just a story of, I can't remember whether this is actually one of her students or one of her students knows. I think it's actually one of her students. So that's a kind of proper American guy. He's a guy, he's very proud of his guyness, he's very proud of his ability, he earns money for his family. It's great life. But he has this sister, and she's always catching him for money. Always, again and again. And she can't look after herself. She's a disaster. She's a disgrace. Bang, bang, bang. And he gets so angry. You know, what's this story? Well, she's useless. She's useless, and that really makes me angry. And again, we go round and round and round and round. So obviously, what's the advice? Well, sit with this. Just sit with this feeling and see where it goes. What happens to it? He sits, and he sits, and he sits, and he sits. And suddenly this story lands, really lands. Everybody must look after themselves. They must be able to look after themselves. Which, of course, raises the immediate question, and if not, what's going to happen? Well, but no. You know, he sits with it long enough, and the story just implodes. Oh my God, I'm getting so angry with her because I have to believe this. I have to hold this story tight that everybody must look after themselves. And what happens if that does become just a story and I let it go? And he realises that he feels differently about his sister. And not just that, he begins to feel differently about the homeless guy he sees on the street. Or the junkie. And I don't know where this goes for him. Maybe he begins to connect with Joko's saying, well, we're all doing our best. And for some of us, our best is being a junkie. For some of us, our best is finding we have to live on the street. For some of us, our best is. But if we're prepared to just look at that as being just a story, then maybe at that point we can begin to connect up with some of our other stories, our Zen stories about how the world is. A world of absolute interconnection, a world of absolute interbeing, and the absolute absurdity of the idea of any of us being able to look after ourselves, being self-sufficient, managing entirely on our own. Because what are we doing if we say that? We're just dissing, we're just failing to recognize the infinite number of other beings that allow us to have that sense of self-sufficiency, the way we are all utterly reliant on others the whole time. And maybe the way that we're not separate with them. And if we recognize that story as being simply a story, in that sense, in the Buddhist sense of being empty, maybe we can make that connection too. So working with our affect, working with the connection between affect and story, feeling, emotion, how we're telling the story, how that story is scripted, how we're supposed to think, how we're supposed to feel, how we're supposed to act on it. That's actually a vital and essential part of our practice. And maybe we sit. Some of these stories vanish or become just stories. Or maybe we just hold them more lightly, hold them differently. Understand, well, there's always another side to this. So let's sit with whatever arises in this moment, whatever stories and whatever effect they have on us.